Welcome back to Halcyon, traumatized spacers, haunted automechs, and unethical researchers, bringing us the latest terrors cooked up by science. In honor of spooky season, I'd like to take a look at the scariest, spookiest, darkest things you can find in Halcyon. So, if you don't want to end up dumped in the waste disposal on the Groundbreaker, go on and hit subscribe. As a warning, this video contains spoilers for the story of the Outer Worlds. Alright, let's get into it. If you've been exploring the Outer Worlds along with me here on the channel, or have gone on your own journey, you'll know that the horrors to be found in Halcyon are many, varied, and often crafted by the hands and minds of our fellow men. Quite apart from the food itself, which seems alright at first glance, or at least it could be said that nothing seems too out of the ordinary beyond the colors, shapes, and taste, but really take a look and you'll find you quickly lose your appetite. There are places where our technology has done its best, but due to its limitations, facing unexpected challenges and strange environments, we end up with terraforming mistakes and mutated fauna capable of tearing a human in two with claws and teeth. Then there are all the terrible things we've done to one another, with the aim of profit, from fighting for territory, outright piracy, and horrific experiments to create saleable products. Among these horrors, brought into existence by our own hand, are the Marauders, murderous, rage-filled folks who wander the wilderness and viciously attack anyone they can get their hands on. We'll talk about them some more later. I suppose that the most scary thing in the entire colony has to be the asymmetrical distribution of wealth and power which has kept most of the population in poverty, working to produce luxury for those who sit at the top. All that's a much wider topic, and it's one I've covered before and will likely mention again some other time. That's not where we're going today, though. We're here to discuss the scariest places and things you're likely to come across in your journey. There are many frightening sights to see, and you'll find them almost everywhere you go, but today, I'll take you on a tour of the ones that scared me the most. Where to start but the most terrifying wilderness in the solar system? Well, mostly. Monarch is a place where a delicate balance is maintained between the resident populations of various settlements and the creeping, hungry jaws of nature trying to claw back the land wherever it can. Settlers live in constant fear of attacks by the wildlife, and some settlements have been overrun and left abandoned in the wake of such disasters. You'll find the air in these places stinks of blood and death. Facilities once used for science, art, and production now inhabited only by roaming canids and mantisaurs. But that's Monarch for you. The best defended outposts survive still, and humans have made a living here, though the worst and most horrific place to understand the relationship between civilization and nature is likely to be the first place you land, unless you have a lot of money. Cascadia was once a bustling port, like Stellar Bay or Fallbrook. Well, bustling may be an exaggeration, but certainly it was well-traveled to some degree. Nature alone didn't reclaim it, and you'll have to be ready to face some marauders, but as you land, things seem serene, if only for a moment. Signs that once proclaimed services and goods to be exchanged have fallen into ruin, their lights gone out and sparks spray into the air. Doors hang open, no one alive inside to care whether they can be shut again. The gaping entrances of buildings, dusty windows, broken barriers, and bodies strewn about are all testament to the time before and the true emptiness of a place once filled with life. Of course, that's not entirely true. You'll soon be spotted and have to fight your way clear of marauders and monsters aplenty. The place isn't just abandoned, it's a trap, sitting quietly in the hills waiting for prey to fall into its clutches. If you're strong enough, and if the fear doesn't send you running, and if you have enough bullets, you'll clear the place of enemies, and it'll remain that way, but your fight isn't over yet. In fact, it hasn't even begun, because ahead of you is a long road. You'll need to make it to Stellar Bay, and that's no easy feat. Cascadia was a taste of what you'll face out there, and you'd best be prepared to fight your way through miles of wilderness. If you fail, you won't be alone. The corpses of many others lay along the path. Besides hulking monsters and hungry animals, there are marauders on Monarch. In fact, there are marauders on just about every planet across Halcyon. They've become a real problem for the board, as well as for spacers and colonists who enjoy not being violently murdered without provocation. They've been a mystery since they were first encountered. What makes a person lose their humanity and devolve into raging fury? Well, it turns out there is an answer, and someone knew what it was all along. Lots of someones, as it turns out. This is truly the spookiest adventure in the colony. Lots of body horror, really scary stuff. A package will arrive for you attached to a severed arm. It contains an explanatory audio recording and instructions to head to Gorgon. You'll find yourself docked there before a mansion that looks like it hasn't seen a trace of life in many long years. The surviving staff of Auto Mechanicals are none too pleased to see you, and if you aren't careful, you'll have a difficult fight ahead. Exploring the place, you'll find dark corridors, abandoned spaces, and of course, a brooding heiress with a mission for you. Heading down to the facility, you'll find Marauders everywhere, but not like the ones elsewhere in the colony. These seem stronger, faster, more feral. Things only get stranger as you explore. Spacer's Choice once operated facilities here, and these places are nothing less than terrifying. Bodies lie everywhere, evidence of outrageous acts of violence. Scientists and guards having fought to the end. Crazed test subjects jump out from around corners and hide in the shadows, ready to attack. Luckily, they're too adult to organize effectively. Unluckily, they move so fast you barely have time to raise your weapons in defense, and all of them seem to have a healthy supply of adrenatime handy. It turns out that this is why Marauders exist. This place was where adrenatime was first created and tested, and these feral humans are the results of those tests. The real fear left behind after these discoveries is not so much that the corporation discovered these secrets, but that the Marauders exist because of adrenatime, a drug available for sale across the colony. No matter how much of the past you destroy, there's always some still out there, and no one suspects a thing. So brave the depths of the facilities if you dare, and be ready for some frightening encounters. Your companions will have a lot to say, but Parvati's affected the most by the horrific sights you'll encounter there. Now, the scariest places aren't always where you'd expect them to be. Sure, this half-abandoned asteroid of Gorgon is likely to have some spooky stuff on it, obviously, but sometimes even the most well-curated facades hide the darkest secrets. Byzantium's a city of white marble and gleaming gold. Beautiful gardens and terraces and signs and drones advertising all kinds of goods and services. It's a calm, safe place. Or so it would seem. Look a little closer and the cracks will show. Stores closed down. Guards patrolling the streets, and of course, the landing bays below the city are nothing like as well kept as the spaces above. It's in this part of the city that you'll find the retirement facility, or at least its entrance. Down an industrial corridor, they've made every attempt to keep it hidden away, which is strange for something advertised as the height of luxury. In Halcyon, you work until you die. That's the way it is under corporate rule. Only the most wealthy citizens are ever given the chance to truly retire. Why then are they forced to come all the way down here to rub shoulders with spacers and other rough types? Well, you'll get a chance to find out, if you have the stomach to speak to a certain citizen and not react with understandable violence at her treatment of you. Sneaking down the corridor when the guards are all on their break, you'll open the big double door and step into a place filled with fountains and stained glass. The walls are lined with gold, and a soft voice beckons you onward down the hall, offering you luxury and rest, free food and drink, and plenty of recreation. You're finally free of the drudgery of Halcyon. It's time to relax. There is an elevator at the end of the hall there, waiting for you to step inside, polished tiles gleaming at you. As you traverse the well-lit, bright, gilded hall and push the switch on the elevator, you find that the clean, shiny tiles along the walls vanish in favor of unwashed and water-damaged stone. You'll get a sense that something isn't right, and pretty soon. The elevator comes to a halt, and before you, across a dripping, dingy hallway, stands another door. Open it, and there's no going back. Corpses litter the tiled floor in the small room, and blood runs into specially constructed drains. Be ready to fight, because an army of automechanicals attend the dead here, and they're all ready to defend this place. Except the janitor bots, for some reason, who calmly go about their task of spraying down the disgusting mess. This is retirement in Byzantium. The gold and white marble were obviously a lie. Of course, no corporation would ever provide free goods and services. You should have known. They should have known. This is a place where citizens are sent to die, and now you have to fight for your life, not to join them. Once the angry machines have been dealt with, you can look around. It's not a pretty sight. This place is filled with the stench of death and decay. After a quick check, you're ready to leave. The big door you came through is locked though. They didn't want any retirees getting free, so you'll need to find another way out. Luckily, there's an entrance to the maintenance tunnels beneath the city. You'll face some more dangers, but nothing quite as frightening as the place you just left. Once you've found your way out of the tunnel system, you might get lucky and emerge in the Acropolis district, which is a coincidence, because you'll likely find another spooky place, and one you probably need to be if you're working for Phineas Wells. You've managed to get around the guards and the barricade. Well done. Now it's time to explore, and if you think it's going to be easy, you haven't been paying attention. After some shenanigans at the HHC building, you'll have to head over to the Ministry of Accuracy and Morale. The name alone should have you a little worried, especially with the armed guards all over the place. The main hallway is truly beautiful. Like the retirement facility, it's dripping with luxury and prestige. Also like the retirement facility, beneath the opulent decorations and drudgery of office work, there's a terrible secret hiding. You'll have to sneak or talk your way through a couple of well-guarded entrances to find where you're going, but eventually you'll come to an elevator going down. Step inside, and when you get to the bottom and the doors open, you'll notice the change of scenery very quickly. Rows of human-sized pods and tanks are lined up and being studied carefully by scientists, while more armed guards patrol the facility. The bland, sterile laboratory environment is broken by the awful sight of people trapped inside and being used as test subjects. You're here for one thing: to extract some gas for Phineas. So you head deeper into the laboratory, and the horrors don't cease as you go. Eventually you'll find the place where the gas is stored, and with it, tanks filled with colonists being kept alive and experimented on. This place is filled with dark secrets, and what's worse, you'll have to make a decision. Take a portion of the gas and leave these people to their fate, maybe to be saved later if all goes well. Or take it all and end their lives, but allowing more colonists from the hope to wake up. It's a hard choice, and you don't know what the outcome is going to be either way. The horror isn't just what's been done already, but in what you're forced to do for the good of Halcyon and everyone fighting for a chance at survival. It was never going to be easy, but this is worse. There are places made scary by what they're used for and what goes on within. Then there are some more traditionally scary places a spacer can find themselves if they take work from disreputable employers or reputable ones. It's never going to be not scary. Certain places are scary because they were once filled with the living and now they're empty. Ghost places, liminal spaces, abandoned, lost to time and the evil whims of corporate bureaucracy. HRS 1084 was once owned by the board, a satellite out in space and designed to function as a research station. It's since been abandoned, but if you happen to catch the eye of Sublight Salvage and Shipping, they'll ask you to reclaim the facility for them. If you do your job well, or at least well enough, then this place will soon be swarming with Sublight troops, and you can stroll safely through the halls. Bright yellow banners hanging from the walls, and not the quiet ruin that it was when you first arrived. Before that though, things were different. The air was stale and calm, undisturbed by the living. Something happened here, and you're not sure what. The docking signal emitted by the station is weak, and Ada barely manages to make the connection. Going inside, you'll find evidence of posts abandoned, work left undone, locked doors and missing wall panels, and of course, some corpses. The lights are off or flickering. The place is dark. You have to get the power going, but until you do, this place will send some shivers down your spine. There are some auto-mechanicals you'll have to fight, and a few places you can only get to by sneaking through hidden passages. This place is dangerous, yes, but you're used to danger. It's spooky because of the mystery. Because something happened here that turned it from a workplace into a carnal house. You don't know what, and chances are you don't want to know. But a little exploration, some swift thinking, and a few rounds of gunfire later, and you'll have the place cleared for Sublight to move in, and move in they will. You're done here. It's time to head out and get rid of those spine tingles. Time for a shower, if Ada would be so kind as to stop snooping. I've established that among the things I find most disturbing about a place aren't necessarily the horrors that inhabit it, but the emptiness left behind when a place built for life is abandoned or, in some cases, haunted by the bodies of those who died defending it. Maybe it's the knowledge that once they were gone, no one cared enough to bury them and tend to the place. It and they were left to rot. Well, there is one place at least that fulfills both requirements. It's a haunting memory of those left to die there and is infested with monsters as well. Nyoka has a long history of broken friendships and mistrust, perhaps due to the way she lost her closest friends. If she trusts you enough, she'll ask for your help, not to save anyone, well, not after she finds out what really happened, but to help her bury what remains of her old crew, and with them, the ghosts of her past that still haunt her. There is a problem though. The old hideout has been infested by a particularly nasty mantiqueen and a brood. You'll have to lure her out of hiding to deal with her before you can properly see to your task. You'll craft a lure from some exotic materials, and finally, you'll enter the cave. Take up positions and ready yourself. Maybe the waiting is the worst part. No, actually it's the Mantisaur swarm, and they really do swarm. Make sure you have lots of bullets and whatever drugs you use to keep yourself in fighting shape. After the fight's over and the adrenaline settles, you can really take a look around, and the space is a haunting reminder of the tragedy that happened here. The dead lie everywhere, some caught unaware as they went about mundane tasks like preparing meals. Others were clearly able to muster weapons and died defending themselves, if they even got a single shot out. Nyoka goes about the grim task of burying her dead friends, and with that, a new chapter in her life begins. The space is left empty once again, though the grave markers serve as a reminder of what it once was. A place for the living. It's time to get back to space and get some work done. There is work to do and mysteries to solve out there in the stars. On the subject of mystery, what could be more spooky than a murder mystery? After you've made a name for yourself, you'll get a call from the authorities aboard the Eridanos atmospheric complex. A series of asteroids kept floating in the atmosphere of a gas giant named Eridanos. When you arrive, you'll find a bright, luxurious place filled with uniformed bellhops and buildings clad in the livery of Rizzo's corporation. All seems serene until you enter the grand ballroom and find the corpse of one of Halcyon's most famous serial stars lying bloody on the floor. Your job is to sort out who did it and why. Along the way, you'll learn that the upbeat culture of the hotel and surrounding grounds is hiding many dark secrets, something you should be used to by this point. There are lots of frightening things here, from the permanently cheery parasitic hosts constantly trying to kill you while they smile awkwardly, to the dark experiments hidden in old labs and bunkers as the mystery slowly unravels before you and sometimes in your direction at high velocity. Not to mention that someone keeps finding inventive new ways to almost kill you. You'll have to make it through to figure out what's going on, and well, I won't spoil it, but there's definitely a monster behind the whole thing. If you haven't figured out by now that the luxury and wealth on display in Halcyon is a show put on for a portion of society that can afford to pay for it, and that the more you see concentrated in one place, the more likely it is that it's there to hide something dark and embarrassing. Not all things kept in the dark are hidden on purpose. Some things are left alone as long as they work, and those places tend to get forgotten. Of course, forgotten places might often be taken and turned into a home of sorts. Maybe lair would be a better word here. Especially in places where space is at a premium. Along with the Hope, one of the 2 colony ships that left Earth to settle in Halcyon was the Groundbreaker. Of those, only the Groundbreaker arrived on schedule. It's one of the first places you'll visit, and you'll see all kinds of things. The upper section is where visitors are welcome, and beneath those lie the dark underbelly of the vessel. Dark, dingy, smelly, wet, and filled with strange smells and sounds, the Groundbreaker promenade is full of life. But where things get really spooky are in the auxiliary maintenance bay. The auxiliary maintenance bay is filled with useful things: a fully functional botanical lab, engine parts and twisting corridors that lead through the guts of the vessel, frightening graffiti sprayed onto the walls to warn intruders away, and, well, a bunch of soldiers who won't readily let you through. The place isn't spooky because it's empty, but because of who resides there and what they're doing. If you can talk, hack, and lockpick your way through the bays, you can get to your objective without much violence. If not, be prepared to do a bunch of shooting. You'll find Marion Blakely hiding in her lab. She and her crew have been hiding out here in secret. She worked once for Spacer's Choice, specifically on Gorgon. After the captive test subjects broke loose and the project was shut down, she began to have her doubts about the ethics of her previous job. Way too late, I'd say. But here she is, haunting the underparts of the Groundbreaker and running all kinds of experiments. If you get in and out with nothing more than some sharp conversations, you'll be lucky, and get what you need as well. If not, all you'll leave behind is corpses, another place left empty of life and forgotten once again. And sometimes things are hidden not because they're embarrassing or dark, but because, well, they're messy and smell bad. It's hard to imagine in a place where you can buy a can of Borst, various bits of pig and whatever else can be scraped from the floor stuffed into a can with some beans and hopefully enough sauce to mask the taste, that anything is ever thrown away. But try as we might, there's always something left behind, and if they can't sell it or use it to patch holes to save money in some way, it'll have to go into the waste disposal. So much on the Groundbreaker is recycled, but what can't be is incinerated or flushed into space or into a giant pit. That's what waste disposal on the Groundbreaker is for. Now, it's dark, it's dingy, it's smelly, and the senses know that this is a place that should be scary. But is it? Waste disposal is scary not because of what gets thrown in there or because people rarely stop in for a visit, but because of what gets left behind when they do. Life is cheap in Halcyon, and if you cross the wrong person, you might end up here unwillingly, or what's left of you might. A place where waste is dumped and forgotten is the perfect place to hide a body, for instance. And since people rarely come down here, even though it's easy to get to, perpetrators tend to get sloppy. You'll find the remains of folks left here to hide their cause of death, often messily strewn about the floor. Couldn't even bother to kick them into the pit below. You may even find a familiar face if you go exploring a little later in your journey. Poor Udam filed the wrong form, or he wasn't quick enough on his feet. He was annoying and a thorn in the side of just about every spacer who landed on the Groundbreaker, but do I feel sorry for him? A little, if only because I'd hate to end up the same way. There are some other hidden secrets aboard the Groundbreaker as well, though. Ones that take some skill to find. If you know where to look, you can even come across a surprise. Well, I'm sure it was a surprise to whoever this was. High overhead, above the entrance to the promenade, you'll find a skeleton hidden in a nook. We've no idea who this person was or how they died, but all the high voltage signs and sparking equipment behind them might be a clue. Either way, it's pretty spooky running into a skeleton way up here. At least that's all they are. That skeletal grin would be a lot more shocking if the meat hadn't rotted away. And speaking of meat, it would be really easy to talk about slaughterhouses and abattoirs as spooky places. They've always been places filled with the trappings of death, usually in the name of ensuring that there's enough food to go around. There's been an attitude in modern society that we can do it better and more humanely than our ancestors. However noble these goals, it is, I'm sorry to say, almost never the case, and even the most idealistic slaughterer of animals must, in the face of the demands of production and profit, cut corners and make compromises. The tale of C&P is not that, not even slightly. C&P, as you'll know if you've watched my video on the food and pharmaceuticals in Halcyon, is the producer of Borst products and the primary supplier of meat products for the colony. Their facility on Monarch and their products in general might be frightening to you for a number of reasons, to a greater or lesser degree. For one, depending on your level of comfort with consuming meat in general, there might be something grotesque about the entire process. In fact, the meat obtained from cysty pigs come primarily from the cysts that grow on their bodies and fall off, which in a way is not as bad as just killing them, though of course this presents an entirely new avenue of horror. If you're not grossed out by that, and it really is more of an aesthetic choice than anything, then a tour of the Borst factory on Monarch will likely change your attitude fast. You'll quickly find out that not all of the meat in some of those cans comes from cysty pigs. In fact, it comes from something a little more familiar. Someone, I should say. Clive, the proprietor of the facility, is, to put it bluntly, absolutely off the edge of sanity, that he's best dealt with at a distance. He produces some special Borst varieties, which you can sample if you're of a similar stripe, and they aren't helpful to digestion, let's just say. They might have been someone you've met. The horror here comes from every angle, and the fact that these products have been shipped out and sold across Halcyon adds an extra layer of dread to it all. The scary thing is, someone must have known and done nothing. If you're hungry, I'd suggest Saltuna instead. Not all the terrors in Halcyon exist outside ourselves. Sometimes we construct our own cages and scream from within. Coupled with the crippling poverty created by the corporations of the board to maintain a workforce who can be underpaid and overmonetized and manipulated by those with power, our own psyches can be turned against us in inventive new ways. We see advertising drones blaring slogans and jingles at us from street corners and storefronts. It's annoying, but it's nothing we're not used to. It's a little unnerving when people walk around doing it though, especially if they don't seem to be able to say much else. Martin Callahan is not the only employee of Spacer's Choice who dons the famous Moonman helmet, but he's the most conversational, and he answers every question with fresh slogans and company-friendly lines. If questioned further, his fear increases and he begins to mutter to us and to himself. Clearly, his time in the helmet has had some deleterious effect on his mental state. It's clear he isn't alone in there. Being fed years of company-approved thoughts has left him more or less unable to be anything other than an empty shell of a man, going about his dull job, just trying to survive. Maybe he likes it, who knows? Still, that's no excuse. Further encounters with other Spacer's Choice employees give us similar experiences, and some are even worse. We can certainly buy these helmets for ourselves and see. Is it the helmet itself which is off-putting, to say the least, causing people to lose themselves, or is it something else? Fear of upsetting the Moonman and the company he represents means no job, and that's possibly the scariest thing of all. The board truly has its hooks in deep. Just goes to show, sometimes the terror we experience exists both outside and inside. Try not to think too hard about that, you'll give yourself nightmares. There are a million and more things to be scared of here in Halcyon, and I don't suspect that will be any different in the years ahead. Maybe the board is gone and everything will be different, but the monsters of Monarch haven't given up trying to eat us all just because of a change of management. We may have destroyed the facilities on Gorgon, but the supply of adrenatime left in the colony means that there will always be someone willing to do a bit of light marauding when the mood hits just right. Clive might be long dead, but I'm sure someone will always be willing to make a meal out of his friends and enemies alike. Not out of starvation or deprivation, but just because. If you think the scares end here, you're dead wrong. So stay tuned and see what terrifying sights the future holds. You might be frightened, you might be spooked, You might be hiding under the blankets with all the lights on, but I promise, you won't be disappointed. Well, that sure was scary. Don't forget to buy some of the fine products produced and sold by Spacer's Choice to relax those frazzled nerves. Maybe an Adreno, or some Saltuna. I'd avoid Adrenatime for now, even though it's perfectly, mostly safe. I want to thank you all for watching. I appreciate everyone who sticks around, especially if you make it to the end. If you like the video, please hit like, and if you're too cool for any of this to scare you, hit subscribe. If you want to discuss the world or think I missed anything, let me know in the comments down below. Oh, and before you go, I want to give a shout out to my patrons who help support the channel. Our $10 patron is Wachuki at the artisan level. If you want to get your name in the credits, head on over and sign up. The Patreon link is in the description. You'll get access to an exclusive Discord and some extra videos I don't put on the channel, and some other fun stuff we're working on over there. And remember, in space, no one can hear you scream, and if they do, they'll probably ignore it. Happy Halloween! Bye, Internet!